Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the stock rear turn signals with LEDs. Before we get started, check out my video on how to take apart the rear of the bike. There's a link above and a link in the description. Now that we've got this rear fender off, we can start taking this thing apart. We'll start by taking off the license plate light, and there's just two Phillips screws in the back. This comes off, and then there's the clear lens. I've already replaced this bulb with an LED. You can check the link for description for the part. Next, we're going to remove these two bolts right here. You can do that with a 10mm. Once you get those two bolts out, the license plate bracket will come off. Next, we're going to move this reflector on the back. And this just has an 8mm nut. I don't have my 8mm wrench with me, so I'm just going to use these pliers. Our next step is going to be to remove these three screws. You can see it there, there, and right there. Once you get the three screws off, these two halves should come apart. And we're going to pull the left hand turn signal out from this wire clip right here. Now we've got the two halves totally separate. To get the turn signal out, we're working on the left side. The process is the same on the right side. First you take off this screw. And then you pull out this top metal plate. Then you pull out this second metal plate, and it's just kind of wedged into the rubber here. At this point, to get the turn signal out, you should just be able to pry the rubber through. It's pretty firm, so it'll take a little bit of force. Alright, and there you go. That's how the turn signal comes out. I wasn't able to capture it on camera, but what I ended up doing was actually cutting off the bottom of the stock fender. So this is where that red reflector was mounted right here, and I just cut this off with a Dremel tool and then sanded it up. So this line will be about even with the bottom of my license plate, and I think that this will make for a much sleeker looking stock fender. Okay, let's take a look at what comes with the Rizoma LED. So you've got the LED turn signal. You have some of the hardware that we'll use to connect it. And you can also see they give you a set of resistors. If you looked at my the front LED turn signal install, I talked about how I put in a LED compatible flasher relay, so we're not going to need these. The bike is already set up to work with LED turn signals, so there's no point in using these. Before we get started, I'll show you what the final product is going to look like. This is our LED turn signal. This is the original wire that was connected to this turn signal. I had to replace one of the bullet connectors to add this secondary lead. This is going to connect to our integrated tail light, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. And this is a pre-made wiring harness from Custom LED, and I'll have links to all of these parts down in the description. This is what it looks like. And this will plug into the stock connection for a turn signal. And then I put on the two female bullet connectors So these are going to plug in like this. That's going to connect the LED to the factory connection, and it's going to give us this extra hookup to connect to our integrated tail light. The first thing we're going to do is cut off the bullet connector on the positive lead of the LED turn signal, and that's so that I can hook up a separate wire. This is going to connect to the integrated tail light, and then I'm going to connect both of those with a new bullet connector. Strip the wire. I'm going to put on this piece of heat shrink tubing because this will be easier to do now than later. We're going to set up a male bullet connector in the crimp tool. We're going to twist these two pieces of wire together, and that's just connecting the positive lead that's going from the turn signal to the integrated tail light. Alright, we've got our bullet connector on there, and then we're going to put the bullet connector that's going to go to the integrated tail light on the other side. Okay, now we're going to tighten up this heat shrink. Alright, now this piece is all set. Okay, now we're going to take this factory turn signal harness, and it came pre-stripped, but these are pretty short segments, so we're going to make these a little bit longer. And then we're going to set up female bullet connectors in the crimp tool. Alright, now this is all set. So this will plug into the factory connection on the bike. These two sets of bullet connectors will plug in like this. That'll feed the signal to the turn signal, and then this will connect to our integrated tail light. These are the turn signal adapter plates that I'm using. I'll have the part number down below. When I was looking for the correct turn signal adapter to work with this bike, I couldn't find anything online that says it works for 2017 or 2018 Ninja 1000 or Z1000SX. It looked like most of the Kawasaki bikes use the same turn signal adapter, and so I ordered those, and you can tell if you look at this shape right here, it's a very close fit, and I think this is probably going to be the closest match out of anything that's currently available. The only issue is that on the inside, these parts are a little bit too big to fit in there. So what I had to do was kind of sand them down a little bit. And so you can see this is one that's been sanded down, this is one that hasn't been sanded down, and there's very little difference. So if you order these, I think these are going to be the closest fit, and then all it takes is just a minute or two with a file or a Dremel tool to just kind of round off the edges a little bit. And you only need to do it for two of these because it's only for the ones that go on the inside. So the way these work is one goes on the inside, one goes on the outside, and then they get tightened against each other with this threaded part of the turn signal. So it's only the one that goes on the inside that has to get sanded down. Okay, to begin assembling the turn signal, first you're going to take one set of plates. We have one of the original plates and then one of the ones that's been sanded down. you're going to take the one that hasn't been sanded. This is the one that's going on the outside. And if you look closely, I'm not sure if the camera will pick this up. This one you can see some of the circles from the molding, and this side doesn't have any of those circles. So just for aesthetic reasons, I'm going to have this one facing outward. So what you need to do is feed all the connections through. Just like that. Then feed the turn signal wires through the rear fender. Next, we're going to take the sanded turn signal plate and feed it over the turn signal wires. Then we're going to take the washer from the hardware kit that came with the turn signal and feed it over the wires. This process is pretty tedious. Then we're going to take the nut that comes with the turn signal and feed it over. Okay, so I just realized a mistake. I'm having a hard time getting this nut to go over this bullet connector, and what I could have done was, before I hooked up all of these connections, put this nut and all the other hardware down here first, so run that over the wire and then put on the connections, and that would have solved this problem. So what I might have to do is take this bullet connector off to feed the nut down and then put another one back on. Okay, so what I did there, because of my mistake, was just cut that bullet connector off, and then we can finish sliding the nut down, and then I'll just put a new bullet connector on this. And then next, we have to take this rubber cap, and this goes onto the nut that we just put on, and feed this over all these connections. Okay, now what we're doing is making sure that everything stays lined up, and we're just tightening this nut down. Make sure that your adapter plate on the outside is lined up and centered with the shape of the rear fender. And then we're going to set up the turn signal so that it points straight back in line with this point right here. Okay, we've got everything all tightened up here, everything is lined up, and what we're going to do is slide this rubber boot over the nut. Just like that. And now I'm going to reconnect a bullet connector to this wire. Alright, this one should be all good to go, and you just repeat the process for the other side. Alright, now that we have both turn signals installed, we can start the process of putting the rear fender back together. So we're going to make sure all these wires are fed through the clips. Then we're going to put the two halves together. Alright, and you want to make sure that all of the wires are coming out of the hole on the top. Next, we're going to put in the 3 screws, the one here, here, and here. Next, we're going to install the housing for the license plate light. Okay, that's all set. Now we'll install the bracket for the license plate. Now you can remount your license plate. Alright guys, so that's it. That is our rear fender. Got the LED lights installed, and we've got the bottom part of the fender cut off so that nothing hangs below the license plate. Looks a lot more compact, a lot more streamlined. Now we just got to get it mounted back on the bike. Alright, so here you can see the new lighting setup versus the stock lighting setup, and I used fixed manual camera settings so that the comparison would be accurate. Here you can see the turn signal difference. The aftermarket setup is a lot brighter and much easier to see. And the brake light on the custom LED is much brighter than the stock. We finished up our installation of the custom LED taillight, the Rizoma LED turn signals, as well as our modification to the rear fender. Here's what it looks like with the turn signal on. The brake light flasher. The turn signals with the brake lights on. And the hazard lights. And here's how it looks with the saddlebags on. Thanks for watching.